Ah, yeah. It's been a beautiful day, coming to an end. Sun should be dropping below the horizon in a few minutes, so we're just catching the last of it. Yeah, and it's been warm. It's only been -4 or -3 degrees. -3 is warm these days. Yeah, but it's February, so we're closer to spring. So there is that. And because of the lockdown, hopefully we will be beating COVID at its own game, and then we can go back to having normal lives again soon. That would be nice. Normal lives again. That would be very nice. Oh, wow. So to recap, evolution happens and is an ongoing process. The Earth is a spheroid, and the Earth goes around the Sun. And the universe is 13.5 billion years old, and the Earth is 4.5 billion years old. And these are all obvious facts that, yes, conspiracy nuts love to dispute. Yeah. Vaccines work, and they do not cause autism. Yeah. And believe it or not, women are intelligent people in and of themselves, and they don't need a man to tell them what to do and what to think and what to say, etc., etc., etc. Who knew? Obviously not the incels or the religious nuts. They had no clue. The rest of us figured this out a long time ago. Yeah. In any case, back to my first point, evolution happens. It's an observed, documented process. And it was recognized long before Darwin was born, although it was rejected by the English because the implication that Englishmen might be related to Irishmen was a very strong factor. The English just didn't like that idea. It bothered them a great deal. How can we proper English be related to those dirty Irishmen? They are inferior species. Yes. Yes. And you got that from everybody in the Church of England, especially because the Irish were not only considered inferior, but they were also despised because they were Catholic. Ta-da! Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And the view back there is quite lovely. You should check it out. It's an absolutely gorgeous view. In any case, by the time that Mr. Darwin came along, he was studying for the clergy, and he set out on the Beagle voyage mainly because he was going to look for evidence that would disprove evolution once and for all. He was going to knock evolution out once and for all, find the evidence that proved that all life forms were created as they are now. And instead, he discovered tons of evidence of evolution in South America. Well, this threw him off massively, and he struggled to understand it. And in the end, he recognized what he had been told by his teachers in Scotland and by all the French botanists and zoologists and the German botanists and zoologists and the Scottish botanists and zoologists who had all said, evolution happens. And he finally accepted it. And he joined a small group of Englishmen who understood that evolution happens. And from there, he set about demonstrating it. And again, he was not alone. First of all, he borrowed heavily from the work of many who had gone before him, who had written quite extensively about evolution. But he figured out one thing. He figured out sexual selection. That is the idea that if you are able to reproduce, chances are your descendants will also reproduce, whereas if you fail to reproduce, you won't have any descendants to reproduce. Simple, obvious, and to the point, and this brought us to the issue of mutation, and which mutations were beneficial versus which mutations were harmful. And Darwin figured out, along with Wallace and Huxley and a few other people, that yes, certain mutations will be selected for, and others will be selected against. For instance, if you're born with a predilection for taunting the lions, there's a pretty good chance that you will be selected against. Yeah, and you'll be lion chow long before you reproduce. On the other hand, if you were born with a propensity for staying the hell away from the lions, there's a pretty good chance that you'll live to reproduce. Anything beyond that is statistical averages. Of course, young Earth creationists never study statistics. They never study anything. Which is why they refuse to understand anything. But I digress. Evolution happens. Evolution can be observed. Evolution can be documented. And it has been observed. It has been documented. And yes, those individuals who carefully avoid taunting the lions do have a greater chance of living to reproduce. And that's all it boils down to. If you have a genetic propensity for a behavior or characteristic that improves your chances of survival just by a little bit, then you will statistically have a better chance of reproducing and passing on this genetic propensity for doing or being whatever it is that improves your chances of survival. And it becomes a positive feedback loop. And that's how evolution works. It's a simple, positive feedback loop. Really. It's that simple. In any case, it's getting late. The sun has dropped another few inches in the sky. It's going to be dark soon. Isn't that a gorgeous view back there? All right. Ta-ta.